it means, but I don't want to be besmirched. It doesn't sound good. I was talking to Brahmananda once in Vrindavan, and we were talking about something, and there was some term, he said naturalism or something like that. He said, that's demonic, it's horrible. And I said, what does it mean? He said, I have no idea, but I don't like it. Okay, besmirched. Maybe it's spelled B-I. Did you spell it B-E? No,
I spelled B-I, but then it's corrected for B-E.
Okay, what does it mean?
It's loading, sorry, it's slow.
Oh, that's true.
Dirty.
Besmirched. He doesn't get it. He's looking it up.
It's a verb, smear, so as to make dirty or stain, and second meaning...
To smear and to make dirty and stain. Do you like that? You put on a new sari dhoti and all of a sudden you get smeared. Did you ever get smeared?
Yeah.
By what? Like a...
Turmeric sabji.
Turmeric sabji. I got brand new white shoes. And just outside my kutir where I live, I put some flowers out there because the smell was too strong for me. The wind blew them over. This is a perfect storm. And the stamen, it has yellow substance on it, especially for stargazer. It hit the mat that's outside my door. I put the flowers back in their vase, and then righted the vase, and then I stepped out and I was besmirched. I was smeared. I got a smear of yellow. Did you know that stuff doesn't come out? You knew that, right? He said, turmeric, but this stuff's worse. If you rub against a stargazer, it's got this yellow stuff on it, it never comes out. It doesn't matter what you do to it, you have to burn your shoes or dhoti, whatever. So I just happen to have a brand new pair of flip-flops, and they're white, all white. I put my foot in it, and they're besmirched. And that's what happens in the material world. Everyone gets besmirched everywhere they go. And the reason is they forgot to ask, how may I be of service? Turn to the person next to you and ask.
How may be of service?
Just don't stop asking. Ask yourself, how may I be of service? We get besmirched when we think, like, wait a minute, how can I, this is my stuff. And then you're contemplating, dhyato, this means I'm meditating on the paraphernalia. Dhyato vishayam pumsam, I'm thinking like, I can enjoy that. Besmirched. You got a smear on you, a stain. And you can't get out. People see it like, what happened to you? I forgot to ask. How can I be of service? How may I be of service? That keeps you free from the besmirchment. We're with an anti-besmirchment party. Yes, here comes the mic. This is going to be heavy. She's riled up. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we talk about using paraphernalia. What about using people? Is there some responsibility to take care of them, just use them and then you drop them, when they need something, or you don't consider their needs?
What is your opinion?
My opinion? Of course you have to consider their needs and take care of them.
I agree with you. It's an extremely important question and topic because we're an organization of people, and every person has inestimable value. And we have a mantra we like to say, it's not what you do, but how you do it that counts. Because birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, but the sky's unlimited. You can say, well, we did this, we did that, and you say, well, I'm flying higher than these other birds, but still, look above you. There's unlimited sky, you can still go higher. So what really counts in devotional service, as Mataji is so expertly pointing out, is that it's how we do these things. If we do it in a mood of service, and we're serving the devotees, this pleases Krishna. Now, one of the conundrums Krishna has is, he wants to serve his devotees. But will devotees take service from Krishna?
No.
No.
Nope.
So, if we're able to finagle our way into the lives of the devotees and offer them service, then Krishna becomes extra pleased with us. That's why when you're the servant of the servant of the servant, you get more mercy. So it's extremely vital in our organization, in our family of devotees, to think about the welfare of the devotees. And this is the most pleasing to Krishna. Sometimes when devotees are feeling down, if you go out of your way to give attention and, for instance, bring them some Mahaprasada and just express your sympathy for whatever they're going through, empathize with them. This is a kind of service. And the exchange that we have with devotees when we go out of our way to do selfless service is eternal, and it's also completely satisfying. The smallest act of selfless service for the devotees is so valuable and so satisfying. These are called loving exchanges. And Rupa Goswami mentions them before he mentions even chanting the holy name of the Lord. Okay, let's take a couple more reflections. Yes, Hari Prabhu.
The scriptures mention the word fear, and the appearance of fear looks like it appears as soon as we think this is mine, this is for my enjoyment. And along with that, the element of fear appears in our life. Is that so?
The minute we what?
As soon as we have the enjoying spirit.
Yeah.
As soon as we embark the enjoying spirit, we look at something, this is mine. That attitude immediately invokes fear in our life.
Yes. As soon as we have a vested interest, and I'll give you an example of this from the Srimad Bhagavatam. When Hiranyakashipu was fighting with Lord Nrsingadev, the demigods were watching. Do you know why they were watching? Do you remember that they were watching? You know where they were? Behind the clouds. Why were they behind the clouds? For 25 points. Gopal's into it. He went fast. What? Yes, they were scared. This is part of what Hubby's saying, but why were they scared? Gopal, let's get to the heart of the matter.
They thought that Lord Nrsingadev might lose the battle.
Yeah, but the reason they were watching, they wanted Hiranyakashipu to be killed, right? They were hoping for it. Why did they want it? They wanted their stuff back. Everyone's cruising, especially in the higher planets. And then all of a sudden they get a phone call. And they go, things are going to get messed up really fast because there's this dude down there. And he's really powerful. And he's going to come mess everything up for everybody. Everybody? Like, remember when the pandemic started? The phone calls started going around. It's like, this is for everybody. It's like, not me, man. I live in California. Nothing ever bad happens there. And no, it went everywhere. So same thing with Hiranyakashipu. He showed up. He took away everybody's seva, whatever things they were doing. He took away all their paraphernalia. He changed everything just out of envy of everybody else. And he had the power. So obviously they wanted things to go back to normal because they have a status quo to maintain in the material world. The devas, they're Sakama devotees. So they're watching and the fight's going on. And then what happened was, and Gopal alluded to this, Lord Nrsingadev let Hiranyakashipu go. Why did he do that? For 22 points. Because he's a cat, half cat. And if you've ever seen a cat catch a mouse, they don't just like catch it and take out a little bib and eat it. They play with it. They let it go. Okay, you can go. No, you can't. All right, go ahead. I was just kidding. No. For like 2 hours, like, go ahead. So this same nature, he let him go. Did Lord Nrsingadev, and just at that moment, all the devas thought, uh-oh, now it's going to be worse. Why were they afraid? Because they have a vested interest. As soon as one has a vested interest and that this is my stuff, I have to protect it, I have a chip in the game here in the material world, that's when we get fearful, as Hari Prabhu was so aptly pointing out. But if we see all paraphernalia in the world as items for service in the Supreme Personality of God, it's not mine, I don't get besmirched with this idea that like, this is my stuff, I'm going to lose it. You know, when Prabhupada was building the Bombay temple, there's an amazing book, if you can get a copy and read it, that Giri Raj Maharaj wrote about the history.
They're available on the entrance.
Just available outside. I get a little commission, so please line up. So, when they were fighting for the property at Juhu, and it looked like at some point they were not going to be able to get the permit to use the property, Prabhupada said, not that they couldn't get the property, they get the property but not be able to build the temple. And this was a ploy by the person who was selling it, because he was thinking it was a poison pill, so that, okay, you don't want it, because you can't get what you want out of it. So Prabhupada said, that's all right then, we'll turn it into a bus stop. And we'll use it, we'll have buses going all over Bombay distributing books, and they can come back here and stop and refuel, and they can get books here, and we'll just have a book locker here. It'll just be a bus stop. So Prabhupada wasn't concerned. There's a story in the Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav. It's the history, the biography of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, written by His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj. And in it, he tells a story of one of the Gaudiya Maths. The Gaudiya Math was highly successful. It spread all over India. And they had many centers, and of course every center had a leader. And one of the leaders had become very, very successful very quickly. And some of the other members of Gaudiya Math thought, like, they were a little suspect of this person, and that maybe there was a little jealousy, possibly. And so they were thinking, like, he's just self-interested, and he's attached to this project, and besides, it's a cushy job because circumstance, everything. So they complained to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. They said, so-and-so is just attached to this thing, and he's only successful because of blank, 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 and fill in the blanks. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta called this devotee in the assembly of these complainers and said, I'm reassigning you. You can give up your project now, and I'm going to send you somewhere else to start over anew. And he said, yes, Maharaj, right away. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you can stay. And the point was that it's the mood in which we do the service. It's not ours. It's paraphernalia to be used in Krishna's service. We're assigned it. We're authorized to use it by our authorities in Krishna consciousness, but it's not ours. And if we have that mood, we're ready to go. Narayanak paraksarve nakutaschana pibyati swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyo darshana. It's equal, heaven, hell, wherever we go, if we're in the service mood. I'll take one more reflection or question. Yes. Here comes the mic.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question. In service to Krishna and Vaishnava, sometimes one may face politics or has to deal with situations which can be challenging. What should be one's consciousness when dealing with such situation? And in two parts, if it's with seniors or if it is with juniors.
Challenges. Well, there's no progress without challenges in any sphere. In any project I've ever been involved in, if I look back, I'll see that it means the progress of the project was a series of challenges, one after the other. And we came up during the pandemic. We means working with a team of devotees to visualize how book distribution could be expanded all over the planet so that the world is saturated with transcendental literature. And we had a challenge, and that was we had made a vow in front of the deities and in front of the entire GBC body that, and this was in 2019, in Tirupati at the GBC meeting that we had, that was in October, and we had ratified the number that we'll distribute at least 10,000 sets of Bhagavatams worldwide in 2020. And that seemed really like a lofty goal. Trying as hard as we could, we didn't, for 2 years in a row, we hadn't been able to break 7,000 sets worldwide. And then we stood up before the deities, before the GBC body, after the morning program, and we made a public announcement that we vow to do at least 10,000 sets of Bhagavatams in 2020 for Bhadra Purnima. Seemed pretty like a difficult challenge. And then the pandemic hit. It came in around beginning of March. MBA shut down. The shops everything started closing. And then it turned out that this is a real thing spreading around the world. And everything started closing. And then a lot of people around the world, when they were reminded of the goal of 10,000, they said, we'll sit this one out. When it's over, maybe we'll think about it. It's not possible. And however, we came up with a different philosophy. It's called assume it can be done. And in this philosophy, you start by assuming that it can be done, and then you work backwards from there and think, how could we do it? First we assume it can be done, then we work backwards from there to meet the challenge. So we did that, and we realized that there were ways, maybe even better ways, to distribute sets of Bhagavatams that we hadn't seen before, because we hadn't been met with such a challenge. That, okay, you can do this, but you just can't go outside and talk to anybody. What? How are we going to do that then? Okay, assume it can be done. Are there other ways to talk to people? Yes. So anyway, just to truncate the story a little bit, when we met up with different yatras around the world, they had already decided it couldn't be done. But we had already made progress by our philosophy that it could be done, assuming that it could be done. And we told them about it, and then they changed their minds. And they said, okay, I assume it can be done, and they were able to do it. So during the pandemic, we also came up with a saying, which is that workarounds bring turnarounds. Well, you always look for a workaround to a challenge, and there can be a turnaround. You find something that you hadn't seen before. So challenges are our friends. Everyone please repeat.
Challenges are our friends.
Does that make you feel better? Okay, so yeah, challenges are our friends, and there is no progress without challenge, but if we don't have challenge, then we don't see things, innovative ways to advance. And really, if you've ever tried to get an ant to go in a certain direction, and you put your hands down, it's like, no, go this way, a little further, because you're trying to keep him from walking into a fire or something like that. And then, he doesn't really want to cooperate. We can be like that. Krishna's going, no, over here. And he's like, wait a minute, how come you're putting so many obstacles in my way? And meanwhile, he's trying to get us out of harm's way and move us in the right direction. So the first and basic way to deal with this is to start with this mood. And it is in harmony with this feeling that I'm a servant. And then as far as the details go, how to deal with individual challenges with people. First of all, expectation is the mother of disappointment. Everyone say.
Expectation is the mother of disappointment.
That's right. And so if we adjust our attitude towards people, first we should know that all interaction, social interaction, is troublesome because we're individuals. Not only individual souls, even on a spiritual level, there are interpersonal differences of opinion spiritually, that's when you're pure. Now, when you have a material body and you add the individuality of the soul plus the three modes of material nature and their myriad combinations and permutations, you've got a recipe for unlimited possibilities for conflict. And therefore you can assume that there's going to be challenges when you're dealing with people. And if you assume that ahead of time and don't think everyone's going to love me for what I do and appreciate everything I say, and everyone's going to cooperate with me, and everyone's going to treat me well. If you think like that, you'll always be disappointed. However, if you know ahead of time that it takes work to deal with people, and you always have, in my opinion, look for the workaround. I love the word workaround. It's kind of a pragmatic but sort of business-sounding thing, a workaround. But workarounds bring... You can turn the whole thing around. Never make ultimatums. Say, you said that, I'll never talk to you again. Now you just painted yourself into a corner. But if you're a servant, if you're in the service mood, how may be of service? Think, how do I serve this situation? And how do I find a workaround for the situation? And if we're in that service mood, in the mood of working around, then we can always find a way to make it work, somehow or other. In the worst of circumstances, then you can find a way to mediate, and then at least agree to disagree, and then find another way to work on the relationship from a distance, which sometimes you have to resort to. May I have an indication of the time factor, please?
It's 5:30.
You have till 6.
Okay, thank you. This morning I miscalculated because I'm having so much fun. Yes?
We were just talking about challenges in life. I just wanted your advice regarding how do you deal with a family which is half Krishna conscious and half not Krishna conscious.
Well, that's
like
pretty
for
normal.
example, you have to cook food which contains garlic and onions, and is it okay to continue to do that? Things like that. Those kind of challenges.
Could you repeat it?
How do you deal with family members? At certain times of our life, we'll have connection to our karmic family, and you have to work around it as much as you can, because you're stuck with it. As soon as you're born into the world, you have 52 cousins coming. If you're an Indian family, I have 52 cousins. And you also have a set of parents that you got according to your karma, and they work in a certain way, they think in a certain way. At least I'm talking according to my experience. The material world's going to be complicated, and our relationships with family members is going to be complicated, but if you keep chanting and stick to Krishna consciousness, you'll go through various phases of your life, and you'll come out on top at the end, without a question. And Prabhupada was sitting in Vrindavan, and he wrote the Vrindavani Bhajan. And he was thinking, and he wrote, so where are all these relatives now? He had relatives. He couldn't do what he wanted to do at first, because although he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and all the bells and lights went off, or on, I should say, and he said, all I want to do is serve. But hey, I got kids, and I got a company to run, and he thought maybe I'll serve in that way, but it still kept him away from what his heart's desire was to completely surrender to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. He wasn't able to do it for some time. And later on, now he's sitting in Vrindavan, and he said, who are all these relatives? Where are they now? They're just a list of names. And then he had the wherewithal. Krishna gave him freedom to okay, catch your Jaladuna now. And he went to America, and the rest is history, and here we are. And there's a way in which Krishna advises us to tolerate a lot of things. And how do we do that? We just keep chanting Hare Krishna and do the best you can with these minor details, because they will pass by. Matra sparsha stukonteya shitoshna sukadukata agama painam nitas tam statikshashvavarta. Like, one of the most disturbing things that can happen to us is to lose a loved one. It's like an uppercut to your heart. I remember when my mother died, and I went out for a walk, and one of the neighbors who knew she had died just drove by and rolled down the window and said, "How you doing?" I said, "Feels like somebody beat me up." I walked around the corner and 3 big guys with shoes, smacked me about 100 times as hard as they could. That's how I felt. And then I was listening to a lecture by Prabhupada, and he said, when you lose a loved one, there's only one thing you can do, and that's tolerate. Just tolerate. Be tolerant, because we're just passing through this morass of the material world, and we stepped right in it, let's face it. You got some on your shoe. So now you're in it, you just keep going. And guess what? You're going to win, because you're on the right side, and you're chanting Hare Krishna, so you're going to come out okay. And I know Prabhupada talks about families. He was talking about Americans, and he said, Americans are kind of lucky because they don't have any family life, really. Not so much. Not like Indians. And he said Indians, they have real family life. Everyone can move in the same house. For Americans, like, who's moving in? No way. But then he said, the Americans are lucky because they can just walk away from it all, and no one will even notice. That's what you do. So, in any case, I left my family when I was 16 to join the Hare Krishna movement. But then I came back later, after being a brahmachari for 13 years and ignoring my parents totally, for at least 8 of those 13. And, when I did, there was some, involvement. Nirkula and I would go and spend time with their family. I liked them. My parents were really nice. And my brothers and sisters too. And, family stuff means you go home, at least for us, in the West, you go home for Christmas, and so that means you got to bring a present for everybody. And I tried it for a little while. Who said, well, yeah. And then I couldn't do it anymore, but because I have such an expert wife, she made it look like I was doing it. She'd go out and shop for everybody, and like, yeah, I got this, that. It's like, all right, whatever, thanks. And then, she said, I got this for that person, this for that, and put my name on it, like I was going along with the whole thing. And then after a while, it all stopped, basically, because my father passed away, and then a year later, my mother passed away, and I was asking older godbrothers and sisters, what's it like when your parents die? Because you can prepare for this as philosophically as you wish, but when your mother or father dies, then it's like uppercut to the heart. And they told me, one of them, Keshav Bardimar, said, when mother or father dies, he said it's like tent posts come out of the ground. It's like you're folding up shop gradually. And you got a little tent here in the material world, in case you didn't know. A little shop selling pan, They have a little business going on in the material world. If you're not into it, and your ultimate goal is to go back to Godhead, well, you can't do it all at once. Even Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, it took them a while. Sanat got thrown in jail. It took Rupa Goswami a year to tie up loose ends and leave. And, even Prabhupada had a stipend for his family after he took sannyas and started ISKCON. He put it in the bylaws that, they would get some stipend. There's always some connection here to the material world that we're responsible for on a Vyavaharika level. And so we just have to tolerate it and go on chanting Hare Krishna. And these little details, they'll work themselves out in due course of time. If you just try to do the best you can with what you have and always stick to the principle of being a servant of Krishna, then you'll be okay. That was a really long answer to a garlic and onion question. There's one more commentary.
I don't
Wait,
know.
we need.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
you do
No,
need
no,
one.
because the people online want to hear you, and that's the only way.
Where's the mic?
It was just a short comment based on Vaisesika Prabhu's family life. Both parents became his disciples before they died.
Actually, there's more of my mother, but my father had Alzheimer's, so I used to visit him, and I'd make him chant Hare Krishna before I'd give him a piece of chocolate. But I do have videos of both of them, of my father chanting Nitai Gauranga, because that's all he could muster with Alzheimer's. On beads he would chant, as long as I sat there with him. And then my mother, who was in, she just, they were married for 70 years, and she couldn't weather the storm after he left. And then she died of what's called failure to thrive after a year. It's not a disease, it's just like you lose the will to live. But before she left, I gave her the Maha Mantra and she took it. And I gave her a spiritual name. I didn't get authorization from ISKCON before I did it. It's the first time I've ever said that, so I hope I don't get kicked out of the
You're
movement.
out.
I had that on video also, luckily, of that mini initiation ceremony, and she did leave chanting Hare Krishna. Nirkula, she fasted until she left no water, and then Nirkula and Sangita, we flew her in from Philadelphia to California. She's the one who wrote the book, The Final Journey, and the relatives, except for one brother who's very sympathetic, didn't want to see the final thing. A lot of people don't like that. And my mother and father, when they're both gone, I had their ashes. I went to the Jamuna in Vrindavan. I ran into Dhruva Maharaj's wife, Samapriya. Yeah, she's famous. And she had her mother's ashes. And so we kind of ran into each other at the MBT restaurant. I said, I got ashes from my parents. She said, I got ashes from my mother. I said, we'll share a boat. And, we can do it at one time. And so she was telling me her story. I was telling her my story. And her story was that she left to join the Krishna consciousness movement when she was young, and comes from a Jewish family, which there's, in some cases, high expectation for family interaction, which she didn't offer, because she was away chanting Hare Krishna. Actually, she's distributing thousands of books. She was attractive also, and somebody took a picture of her at Woodstock, and it became an iconic picture all over the world of this hippie girl. And so, in any case, she was in the Hare Krishna movement and didn't go back to interact very much with her family and her parents. This all came from the garlic and onion thing. And however, well, I shouldn't say however yet, because she became estranged from some of her relatives, especially one brother, who disowned her because she had not contributed enough to the family. And they felt that she was disrespectful and had failed the parents. So what happened was her mother, who was the last one left, got fatally ill and had a few months to live. So Samapriya went back and lived with her and took care of her in her final days. But nobody else in the family wanted to do that. They couldn't take it because it's hard to watch your parents die and not know what's actually going on. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that if your eyes aren't trained in knowledge, when somebody dies, you don't know what's happening. And it's extremely bewildering. And it's hard to take. So in any case, she took expert care of her mother in the final days. And after her mother passed, her brother and the rest of the family, but headed by her brother who had disowned her, came to her and said, now we understand. We were to take care of her during life, but you are the only one qualified because of your lifestyle to take care of her during death. They saw it for themselves.
Haribo.
So, the career of a devotee is extremely important, and I'm just trying to paint this picture that, we're going through this life. There will be complexities. Everybody has them. In fact, we find anybody who comes to the Krishna conscious movement comes with some complexity. The only one person I know that didn't have any complexities is Shukadeva Goswami. he engineered the whole thing. He stayed in the womb for 14 years, and then his father Vyasadeva said, come here, and like, it's Brahmin thread, and like, no thanks, bye. Everybody else has garlic and onion issues. And it requires tolerating going through these various phases of life until we come out and we're able to see the whole picture. And we'll get to see that when we stick through this Krishna conscious movement to the very end. When we're leaving our body, we get to see the whole thing, and we'll also remember all the service that we did too. As the Sri Upanishad, the devotees saying to the Lord that, please remember all my sacrifices. Prabhupada writes, first thing in the purport, you don't have to tell the Lord, He knows. We may forget everything we've done, but He doesn't forget anything. He takes even the smallest little service that you do for the Lord and for Him, and He remembers it, and He never forgets it. And His name is Vanchatita. He fulfills our desires far beyond what we could ever imagine or conceive of. Vanchatita. And anyone who's devotional or around devotees or appreciates devotees, they get to come too. Everybody's invited. Gunaraj Khan, he wrote a book called Sri Krishna Vijay in the 14th century. He lived in Kulinagram, what is now called Navadvip. And it was a book of sonnets, devotional sonnets. And sonnets in Sanskrit, they're supposed to have a certain meter. His didn't have much meter at all. It was ragged, poetically. But it said in it, Nanda Krishna More Prannath, one of the statements. Son of Nanda Maharaj is my life and soul. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu read that book and he said, because of Gunaraj Khan living in this city, he wrote this book, Nanda Krishna More Prannath. Everybody in this town is liberated. Not just everybody, even the dog that lives in this town is liberated. So you can have faith that if you stick to following in the parampara, the line of pure devotional service under the protection of the great souls, the great acharyas, and you just ride out all the various ups and downs that are inevitably there in this short lifetime, and just be a servant. Keep your head down and serve. Grab the mop. I saw somebody mopping the floor in here. There's no better service than mopping floor, except for maybe washing pots. Because then you can stick your head right in the sink and nobody can bug you. They come over here, guess what? The whole world's blown up. Say, get out of here. I got a pot to finish. And clean the toilet. There's a devotee, and I won't mention the place, but he told me, confidentially, he got a job. And this was, he got a job so that he could do more service, and it was a menial job. It was cleaning public toilets. Because he didn't want to work corporate, he just wanted more time for devotional service job, enough to pay the rent. So he's cleaning toilets. So he calls, I said, wow, cleaning toilets, huh? You know, that's something you go to a party and it's like, what are you doing these days? Cleaning toilets. Oh, I'm sorry I asked. So he told me, he said to me, I have no more sex desire. He said it. He said, since I've started doing this menial service, cleaning public toilets, I have no more material desires. I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy. Take a clue. How can I be of service? Be a humble servant. Be the most menial servant. And just keep doing it. And that's the secret of success in life. It's very simple. Okay. One last point or question? Okay, we're all done. Yes.
No mic without.
You were mentioning earlier on that we have to balance between time of work and time of leisure as devotees. So would you like to describe what is a time of leisure for devotees?
Well, I like to go for walks. There are senior devotees that come stay at our house, and we go together. We make a picnic, or devotees make a picnic for us, and then we drive up there. There's a place not too far from our house, about an hour, 20 minutes away, called Muir Woods. It's redwood forest. And when these senior devotees come, we get a picnic basket, put it in the back of the car, place to sit on the ground, and then we go up there, go hiking. One of the devotees, the God brother, we'd sit out there in the forest and sit on a log. And one day we were just sitting there talking. We talked for hours and hours. And we saw a swarm of these tiny little gnats. They swarm?
Yes.
And they just hover in the air. Beautiful spring day, I think, and they're hovering there. And I noticed that whenever I'd say I enunciate a point, like, yeah, and then they would go like that. And so then we started going, Hare Krishna, and they go, and we watched the stream go by, and we talked about things related to the stream and Krishna consciousness, and then we got into trees, and we talked about problems, and we talked about what's bugging us, and what's the future of the Hare Krishna movement, and then it started getting dark. We went back to the car, and we drove home. Of course, we had a picnic in between, and we sat there on the ground, and there was a little groundhog, kept sticking his head out of the hole. So I had a sweet ball, and actually he tried first, and then I tried, and I got a hole in one. So I'm just saying, this was our recreation. And you go away with a god brother or god sister somewhere, or a friend, a group of devotees, and take some time just to be in nature and take time to talk about what's really in your heart. This is Guya Makyati Prichyati. Take some time for yourself to recreate, and we came back refreshed, happy. My wife and I, every year, we plan a retreat, usually about 6 days, usually at the end of the year, and we go off to an unknown place that nobody knows where we are. And it's just closer to nature, and we go for long walks, and we talk about, so what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? Because sometimes, like in married life, you can just pass each other in the hallway in a busy, so busy, you just keep going next thing. But it's important. We started this ritual many years ago, maybe 35 years ago, where we'd stop everything at the end of the year and just take time to write down what our goals are for the next year, how we did the last year, discuss it, how are we doing. And we always find that we can find the next path, and that what we're supposed to be doing. Krishna always reveals to us when we talk about it and say, what should we be doing next? What's our next phase in life? How are we going to do that? And make a plan for it, and then Krishna arranges for it. So this is a part of our life where we have to be balanced with those that we're working with, that we live with. We have to take time and discuss, how it all fits together. How are you doing? How are you doing? And talk about it. So I find the greatest recreation for me, recreation, is at this phase of my life, is being with God brothers and God sisters. So, just while we're here, sitting in the back room, we got a little time together. There's a few of us here, and just talking. And it's important. Get together with like-minded devotees who they're in it till the end. Their heart's in it, or you've been in the trenches with them, so you can relate to them, and you just talk. And that's a kind of recreation also. Also, it's good to take care of yourself. Everyone should take some time every day to exercise. Prabhupada liked to walk. Walking's good because you get to see everything. You see squirrels, get ideas. One day I was walking, I just carry my notepad with me, and whenever I see something that reminds me of Krishna consciousness, I just pull out my notepad and I write it down. One day I saw the storm drains in our little town, Burlingame, and it said on it, "No dumping drains the bay," and it has a picture of a fish. It's the storm drains where the water accumulates and runs down, and the bay's not too far from us, so everything goes there. So then I was thinking, because I was chanting as I was walking, that the storm drains are just like my ears. And then I should get a little tattoo up here that says, "No dumping drains the bay of your heart." And things like that. We should always be recreating ourselves. Take time for yourself to process the Krishna consciousness and look around and see how it all relates to what we're doing in our lives. So those are a few ideas. And your body too. Be careful what you eat. You have to eat a balanced diet, because if you overeat, then you'll get some disease. If you undereat, then you won't want to get up in the morning. So, Krishna says, be balanced in everything that you do. Okay. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna. Haribol Maharaj. Just something you said.
Hold that really close to your mouth.
Something you said earlier on regarding incomes and how much we should give away to charities and things like that.
Yeah? Would you like to make a donation?
In the Bhagavad Gita, I read it that all these corporates and high earners and all this, they should only keep 50% of their income. 50 should be given to, ideally, KC. 25 should be kept for himself and 25 for his family. And similarly, it says something about your tummy. It says if your capacity is 1 kg for the amount of food you can eat, you should only eat half, 50% in other words. And 25 should be kept for air and 25 for water. This is all in the Bhagavad Gita. Is that true?
It's true. Shortest answer I ever gave. Okay. We'll just chant for 3 minutes.
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Thank you, everybody. Tomorrow morning we'll start again with the 5 limbs of bhakti. And tonight, Hari Prabhu is going to start in just about 10 minutes with a stadium kirtan. The power to rock not just one stadium, but multiple stadiums all at the same time. So just make sure you can handle it. You may leave your body during this experience. You will go back to Godhead. If you have any services to complete before you enter the kirtan, make sure they're done so you don't leave a body behind for everybody else to have a bunch of service, okay? Haribol. Mancha Kalpatarishta, Kripa